all of you to this, the fourth session in our Diamond Alchemy program, the Alchemy of Divine Darkness. And it's an aspect of the diamond work that I really enjoy connecting with. And we're going to be working this evening as well with the black diamond, or this morning, wherever you're tuning in. We're going to be working with the black diamond. And I just love this image. We had a bit of a debate about it in an earlier session where I actually used this image. It's done by a guy called Nyako Nakar. This is his signature. And I use his images with permission. Um, and to me, it's just indicative of the diamond absorbing the light. So you can kind of see all of these broad pillars and streams coming into it, but only little bits of light escaping. And that's really the function of the black diamond. And these little elements or aspects here, I tended to always look at them as feathers until somebody said to me, no, they look like fish. Um, Representing the age of Pisces, which is what we're moving out of and bridging into. So it's like moving out of the age of Pisces. The diamond is the gateway into the new era, into a new way of being, and especially the black diamond from an alchemical, very powerful alchemical perspective. So anyway, that just introduces the image to you. Very big welcome, and I hope you're going to enjoy this session on the divine darkness. As always, this diamond alchemy program really takes us into a deeper understanding of alchemy and alchemical processes. And what I always try and do is bring all of that back down to understanding how in our biology and in our bodies we are created to be able to make this transition through alchemical processes into a brand new way of being. So this is no exception. There's quite a bit of information in here, both deeply esoteric and metaphysical, as well as biological, so that you can hopefully build those bridges. As always, let me say to you as well, we have a little chat room here. So those of you who are joined live, hello, Doyi, welcome. Those of you who are able to join us live for this, please ask your questions, put your comments in the chat box, because it's really helpful, I think, for others, whether joining live or listening to the recordings, to be able to learn as well from some of the questions that are asked. So I'm really delighted to have you sharing the space today. And also, just to formally say, because I did mention it offline before we were recording, that the energies of today in respect of supporting this like deep dive, if you like, into the divine darkness are just so incredibly aligned, because today is the new moon solar eclipse. And it is governed, the whole energies of today are governed by the planet Neptune, which is the spiritual guidance, the planet that actually rules spirituality, as well as emotion, and lots of other things, but it's known as the spiritual planet. So we do have a lot of energetic support for the work that we are doing, and synchronistically just beautifully timed. Right, so let's start off. And this I found very pertinent to understanding the art, the science, the metaphysics, the meaning of alchemy, was this quote. And I can't remember who actually made the quote, so excuse me for not putting a reference on. The art of alchemy is like a psycho-spiritual multivitamin and mineral elixir secreted by the cosmic mind to help heal the collective madness that has infected our world. And I just love that, because when it comes to working with the unconscious and working with the darkness and the divine darkness, it is quite possible to actually come face to face with some of those images and dark images that are stored within the collective human psyche. Because the more we develop and the more interconnected and connected we become, the more accessible are the images, symbols, and archetypes that reside within the collective realm. So it's almost our responsibility when we dive into the unconscious realms to be able to neutralize and stand strong in the face of all of those fears, if you like, that have infected and perhaps generate a great deal of fear and indeed madness in the rest of the collective humanity. So there's huge healing to be done, not only personally, but collectively as well through through this work with alchemy. So don't underestimate the extent of what we are doing by accessing, I love this, the multivitamins and mineral elixirs of the cosmic mind that we are gifted with through the work that we are doing and that we access. So, what do we mean by divine darkness? Now, this is also a quote that I found, and I can send you a link to this website because there's an extensive article on this website which really describes the understanding of alchemy. And what it actually says here, this is just a very small extract. Alchemy is an expression of the fact that light is hidden in darkness, that the deepest blessings are found in the distressing dark shadows of the human psyche. And Carl Jung was one of those who really understood and I think dived deeply into what we may understand as the divine darkness. And he amplifies this darkness when he says that the prima materia, now the prima materia is a phrase that's used in alchemical language. It is the fundamental prime material source that provides the building blocks, if you like, for creation, for transformation. So the prima materia is actually the divine darkness. It's the alchemical language or terminology that's used for divine darkness. Now, there's a big difference also between the divine darkness, as we call it, and what we commonly understand as dark and light, which is polarized. Because the divine darkness, because of its quality, the prima materia, it actually contains everything within it. So it's not polarized in that sense. I hope that makes sense for you. It's unpolarized, but it contains everything. And it's the gateway into our unconscious mind. And the whole aspect or process of the journey is to ultimately bring everything from the unconscious into the light of consciousness. And the black diamond and the work do is our gateway into the prima materia. So Jung describes this prima materia as being Saturnine. And the malefic Saturn, Saturn is often associated, it's the planet that's often associated with what we might know in common parlance or in religious terminology as the devil, because it contains, Saturn links us with all of the fears that govern our existence. So, in a sense, those fears become personified or anthropomorphized as this figure, archetypal figure that we may know as the devil. So the devil tempts us. You know, it's our fears that actually tempt us into straying from the path, straying from our ultimate journey back to oneness. And it's known that Saturn as a planet is often termed the hard taskmaster, that when we experience the Saturn return in our natal chart, that there are often very many challenges to face. And this is the reason why, because Saturn highlights where all of those conflicts and fears are still residing in our unconscious and require resolution. So Jung says the malefic Saturn is the abode of the devil, or whatever. Again, it is the most despised and rejected thing. So it's everything that we have rejected and despised about ourselves, about our humanity. So it requires a lot of compassion in order to actually transform this. Those things that have been thrown out on the street, cast on the dunghill, found in filth. So it's very strong terminology and very strong language and respect of understanding some of the content of the unconscious, and some of what is there in divine darkness, because ultimately everything in existence needs to be brought back into the ultimate source and light of love. And we say that divine darkness absorbs all light. I mean, don't forget also that light can be both visible and invisible. So it covers all ranges of the electromagnetic spectrum. We are only familiar with the terminology of light because of our sun. And that exists, the light that we see exists within a very, very narrow portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. So it's all light, visible and invisible. The whole spectrum of frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum exist and are absorbed within the darkness and exist within the divine darkness. So I hope that makes a bit of sense for you. So it's a really challenging aspect of the journey for many. But it's a beautiful part of the journey, and it's actually very, very rewarding to go through this alchemy. And understanding this is really quite key as well, because if we consider, some of the high spiritual initiates, well, not some of, most of them, go through their own challenging journey in the divine darkness. That's a very aspect of their initiation. We just have to think about the initiations in the pyramids of Egypt. The sarcophagus in the king's chamber in the pyramid had nothing to do with it being a burial chamber. It was a chamber of rebirth. And that rebirthing took place through the initiate actually being closed within that sarcophagus in complete darkness, because part of the journey and part of the process was the resurrection through facing every single aspect of their fears. And as that actually happened, and recognizing the strength in their spiritual source, um, and this also involved facing very many of the collective fears, because that's the extent of the field that is accessed within this space. So it's really deep work. Okay, now this is a reference that I found to the work of Dionysius, and it's Dionysius the Areopagite. That's what he's known as. He lived around the 1st century AC. We've just got Rosemary typing a comment here in the chat room. Okay, we'll wait for it to come up. And it's obviously written and it's translated from Greek. Dionysius was Greek. And he was a very deep philosopher, and he actually applied alchemical and esoteric principles to some of the biblical teachings that were emerging in the 1st century AC. So this is also, there's an incredible amount that he's written about the divine darkness, but I just loved some of the wording, and if you can just feel into the depth of what he's actually saying here. He actually says supernal triad. Now remember, everything and the facets of the diamond, we actually have the sacred trinity, the triad in every face of the diamond. Supernal triad, deity above all essence, knowledge and goodness. Guide of Christians to divine wisdom. Direct our path to the ultimate summit of the mystical law, the most incomprehensible, most luminous, and most exalted, where the pure, absolute, and immutable mysteries of theology are veiled in the dazzling obscurity of the secret silence. And that's also the nature of the divine darkness, is the silence that's there, outshining all brilliance with the intensity of their darkness, and surcharging our blinded intellects with the utterly impalpable and invisible fairness of glories surpassing all beauty. And that's there's a caution here, because we often tend to, as humans, or we can be, blinded by our intellect. So this also implies that the process and the journey of alchemy requires us to understand, not necessarily with our intellect, but to understand with our heart, to actually surrender the conscious mind in order to access the truth that actually exists beyond the intellect. Because the divine darkness, the ultimate supreme divine, lies beyond words. It lies beyond our ability to reason it into being. So much as we try to do so, there is a surrendering into that space that is actually required. So he further says, let this be my prayer. But do thou, dear Timothy, in the diligent exercise of mystical contemplation, leave behind the senses and the operations of the intellect, and all things sensible and intellectual, and all things in the world of being and non-being, that thou mayest arise by unknowing towards the union as far as it is attainable with him who transcends all being and all knowledge. For by the unceasing and absolute, I think that's renunciation of thyself and of all things, thou mayest be borne on high through pure and entire self abnegation into the super essential radiance of the divine darkness. And what he's actually saying here is that the source resides within the divine darkness. It is our journey into and through this realm that ultimately reveals the truth and the transcendence of the ultimate nature of what the divine actually is. Um, so we tend to often seek out the light, but that's but a fraction of what exists within the ultimate radiance of the divine darkness, because that contains everything. So it's a really deep and incredible journey. Does that make sense to you guys? So it's a powerful process that we undertake and that we acknowledge when we journey into those realms. And I think, this is, yeah, all that wisdom. I mean, the ancient philosophers, and that's why I often say as well, I said that in one of the earlier sessions, I think it's really important to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's lots of so-called new stuff coming through, a lot of channels and what have you, and yet the wisdom, people like Lao Tzu, like Dionysius, like Carl Jung, the wisdom that is inherent in their understanding just holds such depth of truth that it is amazing. Let's use that as a bridge into this new age that we are transitioning into, moving into. Yeah, and what I was going to say is this is one of the reasons why I think one needs to approach this almost descent into darkness with total reverence, with absolute respect. It is not something that is also taken lightly as part of our journey. And I know that there are groups or individuals that actually do darkness immersions, where you can be locked up in darkness for like 3 days because that's part of an ultimate resurrection. However, what I have heard is stories of individuals who may not have been psychologically prepared for what may await them in their darkness, or to be able to face some of those archetypes that may appear within that space, that the fear actually takes over. And I have heard of one woman who actually had to be hospitalized with a psychotic break, but that was really extensive, because some of the processes do take 2 and 3 days, where you're really immersed in nothing but total darkness for 3 days, which allows all of this stuff to emerge from within you. So there needs to be a lot of preparation, a lot of understanding, a lot of respect, um, and yeah, sort of discipline and clearing out, I think, before such an extensive initiation is undertaken, because that's essentially what it is. It's an initiation. So we need to be fully prepared for really extensive ones. Obviously, what we're doing now is we're really going through the understanding of it, and we're going to do a short process to really connect with that. and to activate our ability to access that field. So it's just really a note or an advice for you guys, if it's something that you would ever consider. Because the initiates that immersed themselves in darkness as part of the initiation program had spent years preparing themselves with various disciplines before such an activity was actually undertaken. So it's not to be done lightly. I think our brains, and this is also the thing about moving beyond the intellect, is our human neurology and our brains are not wired to fully comprehend the enormity and the magnitude of what the divine, the totality of the frequencies of the divine really mean, and to a large extent, our bodies actually can't accommodate. Our physical bodies, as they are at the moment, can't accommodate the fullness of the range of those frequencies. So we're really working to the best of our ability as far as is attainable within our biology at the moment. Okay, so Rachel's typing. Okay, I'll pick it up in a moment. So, what I want to connect you with. Okay, so Rachel's just made a beautiful comment. She says, that's the beauty of the diamond work. I've noticed I can hold much more light. Yes. And that's exactly what it is. It strengthens your vessel, it strengthens your physical container, it strengthens your biology to be able to hold more light. And the black diamond in particular also is a huge support in enabling and facilitating our ability to hold more light. So I just want to take a quick whiz through. Some of you, if you have done the neuromelanin webcast, which is up as a separate webcast on my website, may recognize some of this information because I did do some of it in the neuromelanin webcast. But it is often good to revisit it so that I can work through it with you in perhaps different language as well. So, throughout the cosmos and throughout the physical universe as we know it, are millions, trillions, trillions, trillions black nanodiamonds. And those nanodiamonds are minuscule. They are minute. We find sparklingly bright, clear nanodiamonds because they have been found in ice cores and found upon the planet and very evident when there are times of great change upon the planet. The black nanodiamonds they just infuse the entire universe. They are formed, they are actual physical components, physical structures that emerge out of the primer materia of the cosmos. They formed in the intense heat of the solar nebulae. They are smaller than interstellar grains, so it means they're like a very, very fine dust. They play a critical role along with interstellar gas clouds in the formation of stars. So look at this analogy. It's actually beautiful, bearing in mind what we've just said about the divine darkness, because the black nanodiamonds play a role in the formation of stars, which bring the light into being. Okay. So it's the light emerging, if you like, as a consequence of the functionality of the black nanodiamonds. And through complex biochemical processes, they function in the creation of biogenetic molecules of melanin in the interstellar clouds of many galaxies. Now, this melanin is key to also understanding our ability to enter into the divine darkness and the frequencies that are contained within that, within our own bodies, because melanin is a black pigment that exists everywhere in our bodies. We may know melanin and be able to relate to melanin through the action of the sun on the skin because it absorbs light from the sun, and it actually turns our skin brown or darker. So the darker your skin, the more melanin you actually have in your skin, the more light your skin is actually holding, if you like. But it's not only in the skin. there's a very, very specific form of melanin that functions in the structure of your nervous systems. So the molecules of melanin at an interstellar level, along with amino acids, seed the galaxies and the planets with life. So they carry the seeds, the wisdom, the knowledge of all life. So at a physical level, they combine with amino acids and seed the galaxies and the planets with life itself. So they bring the image of the divine that is held within it into external manifestation. And that's sort of known as the theory or the process of panspermia, is how galaxies and other planets are actually seeded. In fact, that's the accepted theory at the moment as to how life evolved or began on planet Earth. And this was written by Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum in a book that he wrote called Dark Light Consciousness. So really important. So melanin is a biogenetic molecule that is formed in the solar nebulae in the universal environment. Okay, so you find black nanodiamonds everywhere, everywhere in the darkness. You can't see them because they're so dark. Now, one of the other things that's just really interesting is to know that we actually have physical black diamonds, if you like, in the form of magnetite crystals that exist within our brains. And the magnetite crystals within your brain support your alignment. They are magnetic. They support your ability to align with the changing and fluctuating magnetic fields of the planet. So the magnetic fields of Mother Earth are what hold life um, and its blueprints in place, if you like, with this planet. So these black diamonds, and you can see these are actual physical specimens of magnetite. These are slightly bigger because you would find them at the nanoscale within your brain, but they're also found within the brains of a great many animals. And there needs to be some more research done, if you like, on some of the functionality of the magnetite crystals. But they support us with the ongoing realignment with the shifting and changing electromagnetic planet, which is really significant. So you have black diamonds in physical form through the magnetite, black octahedra in your brain. So that's one of the first things to be aware of. Now, I just want to go a little bit more in depth into melanin and neuromelanin, so that you can perhaps understand this as the gateway into divine darkness and its ability within our bodies to reset the blueprints, to guide the neurogenesis or the formation of our nervous system. So within this process, if you like, that we undertake, we can assist our neurology to adjust to the expanding frequency field that we have access to as part of our evolutionary journey. I hope that makes sense for you. So, melanins in the physical sense, we think about our bodies. They are naturally occurring polymeric pigments produced from, those are the specific amino acids, tyrosine and cysteine, by catecholaminagic, I know catecholamine, neurons and melanocytes. Don't worry about the technological bits. Melanin subcategories occurring in humans include, importantly, neuromelanin, eumelanin, and pheomelanin. The critical one that we are interested in is the neuromelanin. It is a dark or black biochemically active molecule. It is found in all living organisms and in greatest concentration in the higher primates. And that is also interesting because if it is governing the structuring and the formation of our nervous systems, to enable us to access and hold and translate greater frequency bands of light and use that light, which is information, in order to reorientate and structure our nervous systems for the evolutionary process, then that becomes evident through, if you like, the higher cognitive intelligence found in the higher primates. So it is carbon based, and that's important because I hear so often, and I know some of you guys would have heard me say before, I hear people saying, well, we're moving from being carbon to being crystalline. No, we're not. We are evolving to being able to transform the way that we use the carbon. Remember, carbon in its natural form is black, carbon black. Carbon under pressure actually creates the clarity of a clear and amazing diamond. So why do we actually need to change from being carbon based? We are evolving using the benefits of that carbon in our bodies and the structures that it actually forms. Okay. So found in the earliest embryonic stages of the neural crest or the primitive brain, neuromelanin directs further development of the organism through migration. So in other words, the neuromelanin actually moves around. It's an organizing molecule. So it organizes the development of the nervous system, and the functionality, if you like, of the brain. Genesis is creation or birth, and neuro is nerve. So it's actually working all the time on creating nerves and our nerve networks. Okay. And that's one of the things that's adjusting with the new frequencies that we're being exposed to. So it's found in strategic neuromelanin is found in strategic regions of the brain, in the spinal column. It's found in the endocrine system. It's found in the DNA, the skin, and various organs. Okay, heart, lungs, kidneys, etc. So melanin and neuromelanin are found as an organizing molecule throughout our entire body. And it's not very often discussed. You know, we talk a lot about the DNA, but the melanin and the neuromelanin is actually the messenger. It's the transporter of the light that we are actually absorbing. Transporter and translator, for want of another description. Okay. And don't forget also, when we think about, you know, we kind of think about neurogenesis and we might just think about our brain and our spinal cord, but we actually have an abdominal brain. We have that huge nerve plexus in our solar plexus, and we have a separate nerve plexus in our heart. You know, our heart has its own brain and our stomach has its own brain. So wherever we find those extensive nerve networks, we find an incredible amount of neuromelanin or black pigment. And it's significant for reasons that I'll actually show you shortly as well. So melanin is a black pigment. It's analogous to chlorophyll in plants. And the chlorophyll, which is the green pigment in the leaves of plants, is what takes the sunlight, converts the sunlight into food and sugars. So essentially, the melanin and the neuromelanin in our bodies takes the sunlight, and if we were able to work with it in an appropriate way, we could actually harness nourishment, nurturing, information, and life from the light and the information that the melanin in our bodies is absorbing in the same way that plants do. And plants, I think, manage to do it so easily because they don't actually have the cognitive processes to get in the way. You know, our mind gets in the way and kind of says, well, how on earth can you do that? It is also protective. It stimulates healing and it neutralizes the spread of cellular damage. It neutralizes free radicals. Can you see how important this is? It facilitates nerve conduction, and that's really, really important for our ability to be able to work with the increasing frequencies. It is an energy transformer. So it absorbs and converts various forms of electromagnetic energy, so that's light, visible and invisible, into energy states that can be used by the nervous system. So if we can generate or work with the neuromelanin more effectively, we can speed up the alchemical process of transformation. So we want to work with the black diamond to help to access those black gateways into the universal fields of consciousness. Can you see how it's all tying in? And this is part of the beauty of the divine darkness. We contain everything within ourselves to be that living alchemical crucible for evolution. Melanin also shows negative resistance, which is a classic property of electronically active conductive polymers. Likewise, melanin is the best sound absorbing material known. So we don't only absorb light waves and photons, we're absorbing sound waves and photons. So information that we hear also has an impact on the information that the neuromelanin then translates and transmits to our nervous system. So when we hear things that perhaps generate fear or invalidate who we are, that sets in motion the generation and formation of nerve structures that tend to cement that belief into place within our nervous system. And then the more that is actually reinforced, the stronger those nerve pathways become. And conversely, when we um, are surrounded by and feed our neuromelanin with life affirming language, words, music, light, and information, we're able to support the restructuring of our nervous system so that we can not necessarily bypass the fears, but we can transform the settings that are already in place by beginning to reroute the information. And we can make that easier by facing into our fears. I hope that makes sense for you. Melanin is also found in the inner ear. Um, Timothy Owens Moore says, and he's written an amazing book called The Science and the Myth of Melanin. He studied it extensively. He's also a medical doctor. Melanin is found in bodily regions where energy exchange or transduction is occurring. So that's where we are exchanging information and energy. So it's found in the eyes. It's where we have light. It's found in the ears. It's where we take on board the sounds and the sound waves of our environment. It's found in our brains where the light goes in through our optic nerves and into our brains. It then transduces that information in the light into structures and formations within our brain. The strategic placement of melanin in certain locations of the body optimizes energy conversion. We are perfectly created to be able to adapt to the changing environment that we are subjected to. This is a quote by Dr. Jewel Pookrum, who's also a medical doctor, works a lot with melanin and the science of immortality and great understandings. And she says the melanin biopolymer is holographic and a morphing polymer. In other words, whatever you impress onto and into the biopolymer becomes the holographic aspect of your reality. So the level and awareness of your consciousness can morph this polymer into its reflection. So hence it would transmit whatever you are programming into the neuromelanin. It's the mirror on the wall for consciousness. So it's really important that we begin to work with this, that we begin to consciously program this neuromelanin to enable the enhanced adaptations of our nervous systems, because the mirrors, we want those mirrors to be a beautiful, perfect reflection, ultimately, of the oneness and the perfection of the divine. So I hope that makes sense. Here you find it in the eye. It shows you where it's actually found. It's contained in the pigment layer of the retina in the eye. It's found where light is converted into nerve impulses. Its formally recognized function is to absorb light, prevent reflection, protect the photoreceptors from harmful effects, and it's for the storing and releasing of vitamin A. So it has a vital role to play in the functioning of our visual acuity. But not only that, it also is really important for transducing and transmitting this information into the energy which feeds through the nervous system into the brain, where our brain then interprets what we are seeing. Yeah, Rachel's just said, makes you wonder why we have never been taught this before. Well, I'll tell you something. The first time that I actually came across and really began understanding the importance of neuromelanin and melanin in our bodies was through Dr. Jewel Pookrum. And I actually have her to thank for this. And she guided me to, I went and did further research and connected with the work of Timothy Owens more. And it's very often used, dark-skinned or black academics utilize this as justification for the fact that perhaps the dark-skinned races were the initial races on the planet. Now, I prefer not to go there. I really want to understand how this links in with the darkness of the ultimate crucible, the ultimate alchemy, and how we can work with it. To me, it makes no difference because melanin, as we know it generally, is a different molecule in the skin to the neuromelanin that exists in the brain. So it's a different function. It has a slightly different chemical structure. So it functions differently. So it's got nothing to do necessarily with skin color. It has a whole lot to do with how it functions in the rest of our bodies. So here's something really interesting. Pyramidal nerve cells in the brain. So these are the little, what are known as, and this is just in two-dimensional form, these pyramidal nerve cells, which actually branch out in the brain. But it is known that these pyramidal areas are strongly associated with a very high neuromelanin content. Now, what do we have where we have pyramid? The pyramid already begins to enhance the ability to receive and transmit energy. They are living antenna. So within our nervous system, we have these pyramidal cells, which it's almost as if, sort of they are tuned already for the diamond consciousness and able to pull in as much light and information as possible in order to guide the formation of the nervous system. And because they have such a high neuromelanin content associated with them, so our nervous system is already geared to enable us to access greater amounts of information. We can work with it consciously. And of course, pyramids, what do we have? Pyramids, octahedra. Diamonds, black diamonds. Okay, so following on from that, this was something that I found particularly interesting, and it's a bit complex. You may need to look at it again, but this came from the Keys of Enoch. Over the years, as I've worked a lot with the diamond work, I've often found writings in the Keys of Enoch that I couldn't make sense of in the beginning, but which aligned themselves. The more I understood, the more I was actually able to understand what he was writing here, but also to be able to link back to the bigger picture and this understanding. And this came out of the Keys of Enoch, where J.J. Hurtak says, Metatron explained to me that out of the eons of creation, they were floating pyramids of light, which could or would create a beginning and an end when brought together by electrical double bonding. Pyramids brought together, what do we have? Octahedra, diamonds. He showed me how streams of energy give rise to these pyramids of different light patterns, which organize the basic building blocks of life when the proper conditions are created and light falls upon chemical matter, creating the nucleogenesis out of which intelligence is evolved. So, what he's talking about here is sort of the light moving across the waters of the deep, that sort of lovely biblical expression. The waters of the deep are the blackness, the darkness. There was no separation initially, but life was created when light moved across the face of those waters, and the darkness absorbed the energy of that light and gave rise to the initial genesis of intelligence and life itself. So it's kind of like out of the primal darkness or the prima materia emerged the diamond itself, which then facilitated the further development of intelligence and life. He further says here, these pyramidal light forms contain the basic codes of the material cycles of creation and produce the chief waves and resonances to that end. So he's referring here to pyramidal light forms, but I just want to revert back also to the fact that we often think of light as being that which is visible, but it's not. That light, like 90% of the light that exists in the universe, in fact 99%, is invisible. It's invisible light. It's black light or dark light. So don't be mistaken in sort of only relating to this in reflective, relating to this in respect of light pyramids and the light grid as we know it. Because the initial formation for me is the black diamonds, which contain all the basic codes of the material cycles of creation. So here we go full circle right back to understanding that prima materia, the divine darkness that contains everything within itself, and the ability to work with and within that darkness to harness more of the codes of creation is facilitated by the blackness within ourselves through the neuromelanin, through the black diamonds in our brain. So those are the gateways for us to absorb more of the frequencies. So that really goes full circle back to the beginning. Does that make sense, guys? It's really deep stuff. And it really begins to expand our understanding of what we are working with. Rachel says mind blowing. Oh, wonderful. Just excuse the noise. I was just having a drink of water. So we got a couple more messages for those of you who are tuning in with the recording. Rosemary says, is this the Black Madonna? Yes, that's symbolic. Absolutely. Because we tend to also, I've come across a lot of references that actually relate to the primal creational field out of which everything emerges as being the ultimate feminine impulse, the divine feminine impulse, because it gives birth to creation. So the Black Madonna is symbolic of that. Absolutely. And it's just been distorted and misunderstood. So much of it is symbolic. So Max says we should use 3D rays terminology instead of light, since we get tiny fraction of it. Beautiful, Max. Absolutely. Yeah, because the visible light that we know is just the light that exists in 3D. Everything else exists. Well, it can exist in 3D because we can feel it, but even beyond that scope, it's multi-dimensional. So yeah, 3D 3D rays. We're going beyond the 3D rays in this program. Yes, Rachel says, I usually think of light as information. So do I. Yeah, all light. It's all part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So, yeah, well said, guys. So, where are we now? It's been almost an hour. We've just got a few more comments. Are there any questions at all? Yes, I know you're wonderful. Of course you do. You diamond souls. You just know it at a deep level. So sometimes it's difficult to kind of put it into words and to get the concepts wrapped up in such a way that it just becomes a part of your knowingness. And for me, it's it's just part of understanding, if you like, the structures that we have within our physicality that really support our evolution and alchemy. Rachel says, I'm glad you're not testing us later. Yeah, I won't be testing you. You can listen to it again. You can listen to it again. But is it really necessary? Sort of unless teaching it, do you need to be able to remember all of that? It becomes a part of your knowingness that you are physically created in order to be able to absorb that. My job is to kind of pull it together so that it makes sense. Right, guys, do any of you have any more questions or any more comments before we go into the process working with the divine darkness? No more there? No from that. Sorry, I've just had another drink of water, so just excuse the sound effects that you might hear. Just hydrating the system so that it's electrically conductive. Okay, guys. Right, that's just a slide with an image. I just love this. It's kind of like all of the galaxies and the stars and the planets and everything else. So sort of light emerging from the background darkness, which is just, this dark field within which everything is embedded, which gives birth to all of that which we may know in 3D terminology or relate to as light and life. So now earlier today in the earlier webcast that I did, we worked with the light code known as sacred relationship. Um, it's a really beautiful light code. To me, it speaks immediately and it connects with the heart and ultimately the sacred relationship that we seek. It's not about external partnerships. It's about having a sacred relationship with ourselves. It's about the reunification of our small self with our higher divine self. So, this is really what is facilitated. This is the information that is brought in with this light code. It's a reminder, it's a trigger, a container for the divine codes, if you like, that enable us to establish a deeper, closer relationship um, with our aspect, our divine aspect. I think ultimately the divine within the divine darkness is just so vast, it's impossible to comprehend. So we're really looking at transmitting fragments of information that can be made accessible to us at the moment through these codes. Looks like S's and R's. Yeah. To me, it also looks like sort of vibrational waves incoming and outgoing and everything held within this center. And as I said to the guys earlier, often when I work with this, I see it almost like a necklace, a beautiful light necklace being placed around somebody's neck with this vessel, this beautiful magenta sacred vessel hanging over the heart. And Max, forgive me, I know that you're staying up very late because you're in Singapore, and I know that you heard this earlier, but I just really want to reiterate it for everybody here on this call that magenta is a color that represents the infusion of spirit into matter, which is the ultimate aim of alchemy. It's the spiritualization of our material selves. It's the ultimate aim of the diamond, is to spiritualize matter and to hold it in place. Um, because if you really think about it, you work your way up the colors of the rainbow through the chakras as part of your spiritual development. You go from red up to violet. And violet represents the opening into the higher gateways, into the higher realms, into the spiritual essence. And ultimately, what you do is you bring that back down into matter, the physical world, the physical realm, which is associated with the color red. And when you blend violet with red, you get magenta. So magenta to me, that's the key reason why when I work with a diamond, magenta is the color I associate with the Earth star. It's the new Earth star. It doesn't belong above the head. We need to spiritualize the physical world, the 3D world. So the magenta is something that we need to anchor into. We constantly feeding that higher violet light through the red, through the material matter. So magenta becomes the stabilizing conduit through which we feed that spiritualized energy sort of out into the world. So there you go, guys. Makes sense for you. So just spend a couple of moments absorbing that light code, um, allowing it to imprint through your eyes. And if you remember, we have melanin on the back surface of our eyes, which transmits the information into our nervous system. So allow that code, that light code with all of its information, to imprint into the melanin within your eyes and be transmitted as nerve impulses into your body, awakening the information that's already stored within your physical being. Okay, if you've got that, then I would like you to make yourselves comfortable and rest your arms, rest your hands. Have your feet flat on the floor and gently close your eyes. Resting one eyelid on top. As you begin by placing all of your attention on your breath. Breathing in and out in a steady rhythm like the ebb and flow of the endless ocean of consciousness, the endless tides of the living seas, in and out, a ceaseless indication of life itself. Resting deep within yourself with each in-breath and out-breath. And create around yourselves or invoke your diamond. aligning it with the center at the base of your spine, reaching up to the soul star above your head and the earth star below your feet. Just create your diamond grid of light around you. Holding you stable. And as you continue breathing, your body relaxes into this space, expanding your breathing to breathe in through your diamond that it pulses with a natural rhythm of your breathing, drawing in energy, information, opening your heart, and sending information through your being, sending love from your heart into every aspect, corner, cell, organ of your body. Let your shoulders relax. Let your mind relax, resting. And in front of you now is your beautiful, enormous black diamond, a gateway into the divine darkness, into the universal fields of divine completeness. And as you step towards it, the light of your diamond grid is simply absorbed into the field, into the black diamond. It is a space of dissolution and reassembly, where all may be broken down into its component parts and reassembled. It is your conduit into the unknown, into the mysteries, into the unknowable. It is a place for regenesis and renewal, where all is created. Just be aware of how your sense of beingness begins to dissolve as you step further into the black diamond. How your sense of identity is brought into question, shifted, changed. And ask yourself within this space, who am I? What am I? And as all that has held you in place within the 3D realm of identification begins to dissolve, your awareness and your consciousness begins to shift perspective. Allow yourself to simply surrender into this ultimate darkness. Notice whatever emotions arise within you as you do this. Your sense of self, your small self, literally begins to break down, and this can generate fear. Take a look at where some of those fears may be arising. Where are you prevented from letting go completely? And breathe. And within your body, within your nervous system, seek out and locate the pyramidal cells that hold together your thoughts, patterns, belief systems within your nervous system. Those deep, dark, black, neuromelanin surrounded pyramidal cells. Find them within your brain, within the innumerable branches of your nerves. Seek them out in your heart center, in the brain that governs and works with your heart. Seek them out through the nerve connections in your spine and in your solar plexus. For your nervous system is all that holds together the patterns of light that define or that comprise your current definition of self in the 3D realm. For they simply transmit the information to create the holographic projection that you know as you. And from within this dark realm of the black diamond itself, from within this infinite field of infinite consciousness, there emerges the sacred relationship light code as a faint magenta glow emitting from within the darkness. And as the code itself becomes clear to you, it immediately breaks up into a trillion different little holographic images of the same code, like a mirror shattering. Each one contains the essence of the whole, and each of these fragments is magnetized now towards you, towards all of the pyramidal cells and neuromelanin within your nervous system. For the code contains the information of what it is to be a divine human, of what the nerve configurations would be like for you to be the embodied divine, to be in the knowingness of the unknown. And that code, as a conduit for this information, embeds itself, each of those tiny little holographic aspects, fragments of the code, embed within your pyramidal nerve cells. Spend a while allowing your body and all your nerves to absorb this information, to absorb the light of this code. And as the code embeds within those nerve cells, you are witnessing, as the observer, a change that begins to take place in the way that all of the neural patterns have been laid down within the various aspects of your body-brain, your bodily nervous system. Spend a while. I'm going to leave you in this space for a couple of minutes for you to simply witness and observe what is happening within your nervous system and your body as the information in this code is transmitted throughout your nervous system. You may find, as you are observing this process, that some of the neurons move around or become mobile very easily and are able to reconnect in different ways, while some other neural patterns you may encounter some resistance with. It is within these other neural patterns that the fears of you dissolving your small identity remain locked in. They may be fears, they may be expectations, they may just be simply beliefs about who you are. Take a look around at where there is mobility. And where there is resistance, and where there is resistance now, call forth whatever frequencies are required from the depths of the divine darkness. What alchemy is needed in order to release or transform the resistance that resides within your nervous system? The patterning that is embedded within the connections. And the sacred relationship code acts as a collection vessel for whatever frequencies are needed in order to help you loosen those tightly bonded, inhibiting connections. Ask to be shown what information has been carried through those nerves that has held you restricted. Restricted from surrendering more deeply into the depths of the divine alchemical darkness. Now notice and be aware of how the sacred relationship codes embedded within your nervous system transmit the frequencies, the associated frequencies of compassion and love. For love is the true nature of the divine, and love transduces everything. That even the darkest corners of your being, darkest aspects of your psyche, or of the wounds of humanity, are healed through the presence of love. And you broadcast this essence and energy now throughout your entire nervous system, seeking out whatever wounds require love's embrace, whatever grief lies unresolved, whatever compassion is required of you and for you. You may feel, be aware of emotional surges throughout your being as you do this. Be aware of how the bonds and connections soften, relax, and shift and change with the transmission of this energy through the code. For your nervous system also transmits the frequencies which impact what your DNA does. So the cells in your body respond to the different patterning and blueprints being established within your nervous system, preparing you to step into and to step up to a new way of being. And on this day, with the new moon solar eclipse, the energies that we are bathed in through this process are supporting the awakening and the beginning of a new cycle. A new cycle and a new way of being that will catapult you into deeper and stronger alignment with the divine. The divine within you and the divine that exists within the black diamond field. Ask now for any other frequencies that will support your new beginning and your new blueprints to be transmitted from the field into and through the sacred relationship code, whatever your nervous system is ready for and can handle at this moment. Let this be drawn from the depths of the primal fields into your being. And as you breathe in deeply now, you are aware of an alignment taking place with those minute magnetite black octahedral crystals within your brain, reorientating your brain field and your nervous system to be in alignment with these new blueprints emerging and being absorbed from the primal fields. So they help to magnetize and hold those new patterns in place. They orientate you within the space of the divine darkness to all that has been given intention for as an aspect of your journey to the new you, the you that you are establishing a sacred relationship with. And as you breathe in deeply now, be aware that on your breath you are breathing in streams of purifying minute nano black diamonds, for they filter through the entire universe, through the atmosphere, through the cosmos, containing within them the sparks and the genesis of new life, ready to emerge when the time is right. And those nano black diamonds transmit throughout your body, embedding, moving through the fluids, embedding within the cells, functioning to support you in absorbing the ever-enhancing frequencies that we are being exposed to, helping you to recalibrate on an ongoing basis to the shifts and the changes as a natural part of our evolution, supporting you in the spiritualization and the holding of yet more light. Those tiny, tiny black, light containing nanodiamonds settle within your brain, your blood, your skin. They move through your bones and embed into your skeletal frame, transported in your blood through to all of your organs, and take a deep breath in. As you prepare to emerge from the depths of this dark field, you project the love of divine from every cell in your body, from that embedded code within your nervous system. Any shadows that you may be aware of, any negative holograms that you may be seeing within the darkness, all that they require is to be enfolded, to be loved, to be not judged, to be acknowledged. So allow yourself some time before we leave this space for you to acknowledge any projections that are hanging around that you may not have been aware of, that have been crying for your attention. For this is the moment that you have the opportunity to embrace them fully and completely in order to begin anew. Take a deep breath and allow yourself now a few moments for your physical 3D identified form to re-establish as you withdraw from the space of the black diamond. re-emerging into this dimension while holding the seeds of the divine darkness within your very physical body. Your ultimate wisdom is that which is born of the divine, is born of that which is seated within the divine darkness, and carried within you now through all of those minuscule black nanodiamonds absorbed from the greater field are the seeds and enhancements to your ultimate knowingness and wisdom that will be birthed in perfect time, in perfect divine timing, so that your life is more closely and deeply guided by the ultimate wisdom of the divine, that your ability to alchemize and create the processes needed for your continued evolution are known as the information emerges from the seeds within you, the seeds of life. Wherever that wisdom is required to be shared, you will be guided to share. And the frequencies and vibrations will be carried along from the ultimate primal field of the dark. And the truth frequencies will resonate in the ears of those who are ready to hear, will be carried on the words that you write or speak, and will touch the divine darkness within the people that you interact with. And as this happens, yet more is brought back into the wholeness of the ultimate one. Take a deep breath in as you prepare to return to waking consciousness. Holding space, vibrating with the essence and the frequency of love, and with a new appreciation of all that is sacred in your life, for every aspect of your being, seen and unseen, is born from the same field. Deep breath in and breathe out. And once more, deep breath in and breathe out as you return with a peace, calm, centeredness, and knowingness that all in your life, all that is flowing throughout your being is absolutely perfect, and loved. You are an instrument of the divine. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay. Are you back? Okay. Sorry, Rosemary, I've just seen. I hope you managed to stay with us for the rest of the process, that you lost the connection earlier on. I had my eyes closed because I usually do that when I go into the process, so I actually didn't see your comment. I'll tell you what I was seeing when we were in there was almost as if for all of you, your form, your physical form just dissolved. Yeah, intense, very physical for you. That's interesting. Because it was almost as if, as we went into the Black Diamond and actually started with that work, it was like, have you guys ever seen that picture of the a brain network, the brain that lights up when signals are going through it versus what the interconnected universe looks like? It's an amazing picture. That's what I was actually seeing. I was just seeing streams of interconnected information, just in not formal beings as such, just light and information moving backwards and forwards through these nodes, the pyramidal cells that were dark in the center of them. I'm going to look for that picture because that came to me as we were going through that process. How are you feeling now? A couple of comments. Let's see. Because I really feel so totally chilled at the moment, I must say. See, the physicality, it's interesting, Rosemary, that you mentioned that. The physicality, I think, is probably due to the resistances that possibly came up against in the earlier part of the process. So we've got Rachel says, that was amazing. I really feel like I called that in. It was like you were talking to me personally. I felt as though I was lifting out of my chair and floating. Yeah, that was the sense I had, was that the restrictions were just let go of. There was an incredible lightness as it was progressing in that space. So further, when we came out of the Black Diamond, my body started pulsating. My hands, as usual, vibrating really hot at one point. Yeah. Rosemary says, "Yeah, I think you're correct. It actually hurt at first." It's very interesting, yeah, because that was. Be aware of it because this again is a process, Rosemary, that you can go into and do over and over. Don't just do one step, one process. Hey, presto, it's all done. This is a journey that we are on. So Max says floating and zap around feels like everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel at the moment as well. It's like all the boundaries dissolve. Um, So I'm really aware of my heart at the moment. I felt a bit nauseous as I came out. Okay, so that doesn't surprise me either, Rachel. I'll just say that nausea is linked often with a sudden surge of energy through the nervous system before it's actually digested. So that makes a lot of sense to me because of the work that we were doing. I guess it helps to know that it will settle. It's just some really deep breathing to allow all of those new frequencies and the new energy through the abdominal brain, that abdominal aspect of the nervous system. So thank you for sharing that. For anybody else that's listening, if there is a feeling of nausea, just please be aware that is what it would relate to. Ali says, awesome process, Julie, as always. Um, are we in Fire Week? Week 4, fourth element. Oh, no, I actually didn't work that way, Ali, in respect of each week being an element, because I covered just the fusion of the 4 elements in the first process, or the fusion of the 5 elements in the first process. So no, but that's when we first created diamonds. Mine was pure fire. No, but we are actually, there's some very powerful energies at the moment because celestially, we've actually got Mars and Venus and I think Chiron and something else all in Aries, which is a fire sign. So it's an incredible oomph, an incredible firepower that is being lent to the time that we have open at the moment. So that makes a lot of sense. So Diamond's mine was pure fire. Interesting. Not had that before. Lots of interesting visuals and memories during the process. Brilliant. Loving it all back into its sacredness. Its sacredness. So yeah. Um, Thank you guys. If you prefer to email separately, I am back online and I'll be catching up this week. So please feel free to share email wise. So I'll be able to get back to you this time. It was just a bit challenging in the last 10 days not having regular Wi Fi. Ali says, yeah, maybe tapping into that cosmic energy then. Yes, absolutely, Ali. Very fascinating. That's a good idea, Rachel. If I can just mention that to everybody else as well. She says, I'm going to do the process again and wear my eye mask. This is one of the reasons why I always recommend to people when they do meditation or inner work is to wear an eye mask that actually covers and blocks any light from entering the eyes because it's then within that ultimate darkness that the internal light arises. So it's when we start releasing the light from the um, the divine darkness in order to create with that. So that's when our inner vision is switched on, and it becomes, it's like this adjustment to being in the dark. But wearing an eye mask, I actually can't meditate anymore without it. I really need to block off the external light in order to really surrender into the process. So please try it. For all of you that maybe are not used to that. It's very powerful. Rachel says, I'm in a dark corner of my living room, but my computer screensaver went very bright at times. Yeah. Yeah, and that can actually be quite distracting. So I will only be able to get you the process out tomorrow. Oh, I'm still recording actually, so I don't really need to be recording this. I'll tell you now. So thank you to everybody formally. I'll stop the recording now so that I can actually download and start the process of getting it out there. Thank you all so much for just a wonderful, really special experience. And I look forward to hearing from you and to the sharings also over the next week until we meet again. When we go into the resurrection, the alchemy of resurrection, I think that's actually going to be interesting. Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you to you all for being such a a vital part of this collective human journey that we are on, and for this collective evolution. And I love you all.